Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Andy Nelson.
Coming to America, baby!
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're wrapping up our Eddie in the 80s series with another John Landis movie. 1988's coming to America. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or join us on YouTube. And you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you can't find a man to satisfy you, then you should see if you can go an hour with The Next Reel's Instagram hashtag Pony Prize hashtag Guess the Movie Challenge.
And with that, let's turn it over to Games Master Stephen Smart, currently on break from mopping the floors at McDowell's, to find out who won this week.
Hey guys, this week's movie was How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days from 2003, directed by Donald Petrie and starring Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey. Congrats to this week's winner at Donna W29, who guessed it on Image 2. You are entered into the 2017 Pony Prize hat. As always, a new challenge starts on Monday. So thanks guys, and see you later.
And we got a blot spot. Friend of the show, Ben Lott, has written in with his rebound on Beverly Hills Cop.
That's right. It was so funny listening to you guys debate the villain's logic in this silly action comedy. I don't know if it was designed to be scrutinized that closely. I love what Eddie Murphy does here and think the action is over the top but so much fun. All the side characters are entertaining as well. I think Beverly Hills Cop holds up extremely well. Your rank 105, my rank 52.
Not designed to be scrutinized that closely. Ben, how long have you been listening to this show?
We may not be doing it minute by minute, but still.
It is a sort of stock in trade. Have you listened to our Rush episode?
Oh my.
I got a great episode. Best of The Women. Anyway.
Yeah, you say that, Ben, but this was nominated for an Oscar. So I think it's fair to dig in a little bit with it.
That's right. It is. We must scrutinize the arts. I'm putting that on a t-shirt.
Yes.
Anyway, Andy, let's do trailers.
So my trailer this week, Pete, is a film coming out called Walk of Fame, directed by Jesse Thomas.
Sounds great. Tell me more.
Yeah, this is a first-time film for Jesse Thomas, who is a writer, producer, director, and even appears as an actor in the film. So I'm curious how the film is. It's definitely a very first-timey sort of thing. That being said, Jesse Thomas did manage to score some big people in this. Malcolm McDowell pops up in this film. Some big people. Malcolm McDowell's probably the biggest in here. You have Chris Kattan, Scott Eastwood, Jamie Kennedy, Laura Ashley Samuels. It's an interesting looking film. I don't know if it actually looks very good at all. I don't know. I think it looks cute-ish, but I don't know if it's something I'd ever watch. The story is a motley crew of aspiring performers come under the guidance of an eccentric and volatile acting coach, per IMDb. The way the trailer looks, you have Scott Eastwood, who works at a call center, who ends up bumping into this girl, Laura Ashley Samuels, kind of falls for her and finds out that she's in this acting group, and he joins so that he can kind of hook up with her. And, there are some funny moments throughout the trailer. I will give it that. And so, and it's got a cast that for a first film, I'm impressed with some of the names that that Jesse Thomas managed to get for this. So, I don't know if it's actually going to be any good at all, but, it caught my attention enough for me to watch the trailer. So I'll give it that. What'd you think?
Okay, a couple of points. One, the trailer is pretty bad, right? The trailer I don't think it really tells you adequately what the story is really about, right? It focuses instead, I think, on the jokes, and some of the jokes are funny, and I think, I like some of it. Like you said, I like the cast. I actually like Scott Eastwood a lot. He's done a number of things. He's had a number of small parts in big movies that I think are interesting. He's had some big parts in smaller movies that I also think are interesting. So I think he's a charismatic guy. I like him on screen, but I think the trailer doesn't necessarily serve the movie well, and because it's a trope that we've seen before, cliches are cliches for a reason, right? Sometimes the cliche nails it and it's funny and you get to laugh at it and just lose yourself. And sometimes it does it really poorly, and you don't. I don't think I can tell from the trailer if this is one or the other. I honestly don't know what to think about it. It's not a great trailer, but it could be for a funny, lose yourself in the moment kind of film.
Yeah, it could be one of those ones that you turn on really late at night and then you just can't turn off and you can't fall asleep because it's dumb enough to just draw you in, right? That's kind of the way these movies work. It looks like it could be that sort of thing. So
whoever thought Office Space was going to be the just hilarious film that it ended up being? That's another one of those movies. I actually don't recall the trailer off the top of my head, so making that comparison isn't entirely fair. But it is one of those kinds of films. This could be one of those films. I don't know.
Who knows? This movie is going to be opening right now. It's a limited release March 24th, just here in the U.S. No other release plans beyond that. So I guess we'll see if it gets much of a release anywhere, and what people think when it does come out. So there you go.
My trailer, Andy, is All Nighter, a new film from Gavin Weason, writer Seth Owen. Both guys I don't know a whole lot about. Gavin Weason is director of The Art of Getting By from 2011, and he did a short called Kill the Day in 2008. That's all I've got for his IMDb credits. There's no bio, no nothing. So this is a fairly early film for him. Writer Seth Owen. He wrote Morgan, and that was a trailer pick. I think I had this trailer pick a little while ago, and it's about a bioengineered half person that was released in 2016, late 2016. I think I haven't seen it because it didn't get all that great reviews.
Yeah, kind of.
Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but
you didn't see it.
But I kept seeing reviews of it saying how bad it was.
Yeah. So here's the thing about this trailer. It's another one of those all-nighter. It is another one of those that I think is sort of unpredictable by the trailer itself. It is a story that I feel like I've seen before. It's an all-night gag-filled search for the missing, party girl. For all we know, we actually don't know where she's gone, is missing, and so this the twist on this one, instead of the Hangover style friends search for friends film, the twist on this one is that one of the people in the search is the girl's dad, and the dad is played by J.K. Simmons, the great J.K. Simmons. His partner in crime is the ex-boyfriend, played by Emile Hirsch. So I'm interested in this trailer because of these people, or of this pairing. I have liked Emile Hirsch for a long time. We did a trailer pick for him not long ago for the film The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which was released recently and has received mixed reviews, but not about his performance, more about the film, being not what it promised to be, as far as I gather. I haven't seen that one either, but on those points alone, I think it has more going for it, and it may be punching above its weight. But I'm interested to see what these guys have come up with and how they managed to pull together a script that got these guys interested. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I think there looks to be some fun chemistry with J.K. Simmons and Emile Hirsch on screen. That, for me, kind of sells the concept, and I think it would be fun to see those two, especially knowing that J.K. Simmons plays, as he calls himself, a procurer, I believe, or he's in procurement.
Right. So he's in procurement, something like that.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see exactly where the story ends up going. It could be fun, but you're right. It's one of those where it's like, it may take me just kind of being in a place where maybe I'm really sick and I'm just catch this streaming and then I can't turn it off. So, but no, it looks fun. I love these guys. It's a great cast. So, we'll see.
All right. So we'll leave it on a we'll see. The dates, it hits US limited on March 17th. It hits the internet on March 24th.
All right.
Andy, it's my 21st birthday. Do you think perhaps just once I might use the bathroom by myself?
Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, lived a handsome prince. He was attended by devoted servants.
Do you think perhaps just once I might use the bathroom by myself?
Most amusing, sir.
Wipers!
And engaged by royal decree.
Why? Why can't I find my own wife?
We've gone to a great deal of trouble to select for you a very fine wife.
I want a woman that's going to arouse my intellect as well as my loins.
Where will you find such a woman?
In America.
So he traveled across the sea to the land of opportunity, which is where the fairy tale ends and our story begins.
Coming to America, Andy, 1988 American romantic comedy film directed by John Landis, who has become somebody of a series on our show, an unintentional series. It was written by David Sheffield and Barry Blaustein, based on a story by Eddie Murphy himself. Stars Murphy and Arsenio Hall and James Earl Jones and John Amos and Madge Sinclair and Shari Headley. What did you think of Coming to America as it stands to wrap up our Eddie in the 80s series?
Well, this one really did not hold up for me. I remember enjoying it quite a bit at the time. I haven't seen it since. And I do remember, I did remember certain elements of the story. I mean, obviously I remember, this is an African prince who comes to Queens to find a queen because he wants to find a woman who really, it's that whole thing. Somebody who doesn't know that he's the prince and isn't marrying him just because he's a prince. All of that sort of stuff. Cinderella story is really kind of what it is. I kind of remembered all that. I really remembered the stuff about McDowell's, although I could never remember what it was called, but I knew it was a total McDonald's ripoff. And that always cracked me up. And I remembered the makeup and stuff, but I didn't really remember much else. And I think there's probably good reason for that because all in all, I just really found just the story itself pretty lacking, sloppy, very dated. I just didn't think much held up, and I had a kind of a rough time watching it. What about you?
Yeah, this is a tough one. It put me in kind of a dark place. I thought the jokes took too long. Most of the visual gags didn't land well. It is, as you say, it's that age-old story. I pegged it to something like Aladdin or like the one of the 40 Thieves stories, the Arabian Nights. And that it's, as you say, it's that, the princess marries the guy for love and not because he's rich. And it's a story we've seen so many times, but it just did not land well for me. It was so 80s, so 80s, from the clothes to the music to the hair. My God, the hair. And I didn't laugh enough. I did laugh in a couple of areas, and these were the areas that I found I missed. Like, I misremembered them as being more part of Beverly Hills Cop, and that is the character stuff. As soon as Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy go into their character bits, I had a great time, but those really sort of relegated themselves to SNL kind of skit level stuff, and certainly didn't carry the film.
I think that it's one of those films that I had a sense that at the time it probably just really hit with the audiences because it was fun. It was Eddie Murphy. It had some laughs. Everything just kind of felt very much of the time. And to that end, it's like, okay, I can really get into this and enjoy it. In retrospect, as you actually look at it much more critically and really kind of look at what's actually here, I mean, you just find just a lot of holes and a lot of stuff that just doesn't hold up. And it may have worked at the peak of Eddie's just his career when everybody loved watching his stuff and what he could bring to the table. But now it doesn't have that kind of holding it up anymore, and it has to stand on its own. And I just don't think it does, it's a shame. But, I don't know. It does have elements that are interesting. It does have elements that I did enjoy. It's not just an out and out terrible film. It's just, I wish that it held up as it did in my memory.
So let's talk about the script. The script comes with, delightfully, some controversy around it, and that gives us even more to talk about than otherwise we may.
Yeah, the film, it says, based on a story by Eddie Murphy. He says that, he kind of came up with this idea on a bus, and, this whole idea of this African prince coming over here and all this stuff. And then these two guys, Sheffield and Blaustein, were brought in to actually take Eddie's treatment that he'd kind of started and create this script. But then, you get this whole thing with, now granted, this came out years after the film. Art Buchwald, who is a humorist and writer, he sued Paramount Pictures because apparently this was actually 1990, so 2 years after the movie. He sued because he said that he had written a screen treatment in 1982 called It's a Crude, Crude World, later renamed King for a Day, that was pitched to Jeffrey Katzenberg at Paramount with the intention of starring Eddie Murphy, who was under contract with Paramount. And it just, it's the synopsis for his script sounded very much like what ended up on the screen here. Paramount had optioned his treatment. They commissioned several people to write it. John Landis was actually considered as the director several times over the course of this. It ended up going through development hell. Paramount abandoned it, sent it over to, I think they sold it to Warner Brothers, who started developing it. Meanwhile, back on the Paramount lot, Eddie Murphy came up with this idea, and they started working on it. And then Warner Brothers heard about that and dropped this one, which was the Art Buchwald one. And of course, he sued. He ended up winning, and this was a really kind of critical case for screenwriters, really, because and for studios, because several things came out of this. One, the studios really started policing scripts that they received, and it became this whole thing where basically if it's an unsolicited script, they won't even open it, they'll just send it right back. That was like the big litigious thing that came out of this whole thing. The second thing is because when Paramount lost, they used what people call Hollywood accounting. And they claimed that despite the movie's big gross, it actually earned no net profit due to the fact that all the prints and advertising, all those extra costs. And that is how the net profit definition apparently was in Art Buchwald's contract. And they said he is owed nothing. And so the courts were very upset with this whole thing. And, they were worried about it going farther. So Paramount ended up settling with Art Buchwald. It's this huge thing. You can actually read all about this in this book called Fatal Subtraction, The Inside Story of Buchwald versus Paramount by Pierce O'Donnell, who was the lawyer who represented Buchwald. But this really opened up this whole thing about the way that Hollywood did its accounting and everything. And John Landis actually talks about this case and says, the great thing because of this whole thing is the only people who actually benefited from the lawsuit were him and Eddie Murphy, because it actually forced Paramount to open their books. And so they ended up getting more money.
That's fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Do you think it was, what's your sense? Do you think it was for the greater good?
Well, sure. I mean, it's good to be safe with creative ideas that come in. I mean, it's such a game. I mean, we talked about this with Beverly Hills Cop last week, how everybody's like, oh no, it was my idea. No, it was my idea. It's very easy to come up with an idea. It's much more difficult to actually write the script. And I think what this does, and it doesn't sound like, and this is something I didn't even know. I thought Buchwald actually had written a full script, but all he had was just kind of a treatment. Now, granted, a treatment it's like an outline. There's a lot of story there. But I don't know. I think that it's probably for the better that they're just being more cautious with that sort of stuff. And certainly the fact that it's made people pay more attention to how Hollywood does some of its accounting, or how these studios do some of their accounting and try to make pictures look like they're not making that much money so that they don't have to pay out as much on the back end deals. I mean, I think in the end it's probably for the best, but it certainly, if nothing, makes everything a lot more litigious.
Well, and you didn't even bring up the other lawsuit about this, because this isn't the only lawsuit about this movie. Writer Shelby Gregory also had a claim on this, and he did write a full screenplay, but I'm not sure. I only want to include it because it is of some dubious sourcing. But this article in People magazine actually has Murphy talking about it, and it says Gregory claims his screenplay, Toto, the African Prince, was given to Murphy by a man who says he's the son of a Nigerian chief, though he has no known address, and as far as Murphy knows, was last spotted in an LA disco doing the bunga bunga. That delights me, because it's like the first Nigerian prince scam. Who knew it started right here with this movie? Apparently, Gregory also petitioned a $10 million suit against Murphy and the screenwriters, and I don't know how that one ended. It's of dubious sourcing. I found this. I managed to trace it to The Spy, October 1988 magazine, where he does talk about both Buchwald and Shelby Gregory and the consternation. So Spy 1988, October 88, you can find out more about this.
Well, John Landis does say, this is very common, at least it was back then, where, and just like I said, people would say, hey, that was my idea, I sent a script in, and it happened all the time. But because these people were just like, regular Joe Schmoes, it never amounted to anything. He said it was only because it was Art Buchwald, and he was this big figure, and everyone knew who he was, and he was, a friend of the press, that it turned into this big thing. And like I said, I mean, it probably did end up, serving a purpose. But I mean, these are how these things get shaped, right?
Yeah,
Spill
right.
McDonald's
And
coffee in your lap, right?
Yeah, it makes for some really interesting stories, and I just think as a thought experiment, it's fascinating to imagine what it would be like if we weren't quite so litigious and quite so protective. Is there a dearth of new ideas as a result of how protective and how walled the act of acquiring new screenplays has become? And you wonder if we would have quite so many spin-off big superhero movies if this case didn't set off. What is the alternate future? What is the multiverse in which there is a more open ecosystem for writers and ideas? I don't know.
Well, I will say to that end, there maybe it's just modern times, but there certainly are good resources now for people to access, probably better than there were 10, 20 years ago. Now, being online, I mean, you don't have to necessarily live in Hollywood. There are some great online resources for ways that you can actually submit projects and have people look at them. There are so many different places where you can go to these pitch fests and all this sort of stuff. There are a lot of ways that people can access people at studios with ideas. So it is actually a pretty, I think it's actually a good time for that. Now, if they're buying those ideas and doing stuff with them, I can't speak to that, but at least I think that it is a better time than it was probably in the mid to late 80s.
Well, I mentioned the SNL feel of a lot of this, and that's what some of this feels like to me, this overall structure of the film. It feels very much like kind of an SNL series of sketches all tied together until about halfway through the second act where the romance kind of kicks in earnest. And that is for good reason. The credited screenwriters, Sheffield and Blaustein, were writers on SNL from 80 to 83 together, and they've done a number of other things in this vein, but Coming to America was certainly a big one for them.
Several things just to comment on with that. One, I think it's very telling that when James Earl Jones talked to them about the script, he said, "You guys may be good writers, but you don't know a thing about Africa." Which is very true, because it's just completely just a completely farcical land that they came up with. The other thing was the scene that really struck me as just one of the most Saturday Night Live sketchish sort of scenes is when Akeem and his assistant, played by Arsenio Hall, are in the bar meeting women, and it's like this weird, it's like a weird sketch where it's like they're sitting there and it's like they're interviewing possible dates. It's such a strange scene. It's like I couldn't figure out, like, why is he talking to women like this, where it's like they're sitting down. It felt very much like a speed date sort of thing. It was weird.
Yes, with zero setup at all in the story. There's no setup. There's no reason for them to be doing this.
Plus, there's the really strange worship of the devil girl. I mean, it's like that was so out of left field. It's like set me up for something, give me something to understand where this is all coming from.
Yeah, right. I think they had said in the script, right, there is a line, well, I need to go find a princess. I need to go find a queen. And that was not justification enough for the speed dating setup. Like, there was a mechanic that was employed through the editing that just was unjustified, and the editing was terrible. As soon as you get to the Arsenio Hall bit, where he is one of the dates, as well as he's at the table with himself,
right? As he's the ugly barfly.
The timing was way off on these shots, right? Did you notice this? It was like, oh my goodness, talk about ill-placed speed bumps on the road. It was really jarring how long it felt like the characters were staring across the table into the middle distance at the other character before we'd get a cut. It was an eternity.
I agree.
But now I do want to say, like, on the on the plus side, the characters were generally funny. That scene is not a good example of it, but the barbershop, I think, was great. I really enjoyed it. That's when I had a good time. And so, I hold that up as an example for what I've been looking for in this Eddie Murphy series all along and haven't gotten. And it's a shame that I feel like I had to wait to get it in this movie. Which is generally not as good. But what did you think of that? What is they're playing all the other characters in makeup?
I agree. I mean, Eddie said that he really wanted to do a film that was more of a character piece. He wanted to play more of a character. And so that's why he came up with Prince Akeem and kind of treated that way, because he didn't want to do another movie where it's just Eddie Murphy playing a cop, Eddie Murphy as, a bum, whatever. He wanted to do something totally different. So I get that. I appreciate that he did that. And I enjoy Prince Akeem. It's a nice character. But you're right. When he gets to play the barber or the singer or the old Jew, it's just so much fun watching him. I mean, he really comes to life taking on those personas. And I think, this is really kind of the start of Eddie Murphy using special effects makeup to really become other people. And it became a huge thing for him. And he does an incredible job with all of them. I mean, regardless of what you think the quality of the movie is, I think that this is a real, very interesting specialty that he is kind of created for himself, of just becoming a different person with this makeup on.
Yeah, that was, I think, a real blessing. And maybe we couldn't do quite this kind of film, earlier in his career. Maybe he sort of wasn't trusted enough, certainly wasn't trusted enough as an actor, when he was doing Trading Places. But, I think it's great to let him shine in this way.
And that's assuming that the makeup effects were ready earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rick Baker would have been able to come up with the effects that he came up with for this before this.
The confluence of events that you need to have, that need to come together in order to deliver this and make them really viable. That's what we're looking for. So shall we talk about John Landis again?
Yes.
Did you learn anything new about John Landis watching this film?
What I found so interesting is that this is a man who, he had a string of flops leading up to this. And, Eddie Murphy knew he was having some difficulty with the box office, and so hired him to direct this. They ended up having some squabbles on set, and it ended up creating quite a bit of friction and killed their working relationship until they reunited for Beverly Hills Cop 3 6 years later. But some quotes from the two of them, which I think are illuminating. John Landis in 2005, in an interview with Collider, said, "The guy on Trading Places was young and full of energy and curious and funny and fresh and great. The guy on Coming to America was the pig of the world, but I still think he's wonderful in the movie." So you can get a sense of his opinion of Eddie at the time. And I think this actually speaks to, I feel like it was Trading Places. We talked about how Eddie said it was the last time that he had fun making a movie, right?
Yeah, right.
So Eddie Murphy, he, in a Rolling Stone interview in 1989, the year right after this is him talking about the issues that he had with John Landis on set. He said, "We had a tussling confrontation. We didn't come to blows. Personalities didn't mesh. I grabbed him, and he thought I was playing, so he tried to grab my balls, and I pushed him away. But I wasn't kidding. He was doing some silly stuff that made me mad. He directed me in Trading Places when I was just starting out as a kid, but he was still treating me like a kid 5 years later during Coming to America. And I hired him to direct the movie. I was going to direct Coming to America myself, but I knew that Landis had just done 3 effed up pictures in a row and that his career was hanging by a thread after the Twilight Zone trial. I figured the guy was nice to me when I did Trading Places, so I'd give him a shot. I was going out of my way to help this guy, and he effed me over. Now he's got a hit picture on his resume, a movie that made over $200 million, as opposed to him coming off a couple of effed up movies, which is where I'd rather see him be right now."
It's frustrating, though. As you say, the stuff that continues to kind of come out about these stories as people start digging into them. There was another article. This is also in the People article I referenced earlier, that where it speaks actually about Deborah Nadoolman, who was the costume designer on this film, and also Landis's wife. We have talked about her before, and this passage comes out of it. As the titular head of a new generation of black talent, Murphy seems to feel a duty to police racism in the entertainment industry, taking a moment at this year's Oscars, for example, to chide the Academy for awarding only 3 statuettes to black actors in its 60-year history. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. And it was reportedly Murphy's reaction to a racial slur that launched his stormy feud with John Landis, the controversial director of The Twilight Zone, the movie, whom Murphy handpicked to guide America. According to people on set, costume designer Deborah Nadoolman, who is also Mrs. John Landis, was reportedly overheard complaining in racial terms one day when Murphy had kept her waiting for more than an hour. When Murphy got wind of it, he was so furious, he grabbed Landis by the neck and demanded an apology. So, who knows what this is all about? We seems like we've been talking about actors who kind of fall apart with directors lately, but this is just another example of an interesting sort of creative relationship that was sort of torn asunder one reason or another.
Yeah, and I will say, hey, I'm at least glad that they mended their bridges and they found a way to come together 6 years later to do Beverly Hills Cop 3, regardless of the quality of the film. I haven't heard anything about the relationship after that, but I'm at least glad that they, found a way to get past this.
Agreed. There is some rich cultural fabric that knits together the first shot, last shot. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, is there ever?
Rich.
John Landis knew we were going to be doing this in this podcast all these years later.
He did. He knew that. The first shot, I'm going to take the first shot because I know you have some things to say about the last shot.
Oh, and the first shot. Go for it.
Well, I'm excited about
Do
you.
it.
Okay.
Do it.
The Paramount logo becomes the first shot as we fly past the mountain below the clouds and into a lush valley of Zamunda, where we fly toward the capital of the African kingdom. And it very much sets the tone for the fairy tale aspect of this film. And I think actually the opening shot and the opening flyby does a good job of that. I would highlight that as a real strength of the movie.
Yes, I completely agree. The last shot, on the other hand, it just kind of comes really quickly and surprisingly. The last shot of the film, after the sudden wedding of Akeem and his lovely bride, we get a shot of her dad and his parents, the king and queen of Zamunda, waving them goodbye as they're driven away. And then it's just kind of a weird moment because we have this thing where Lisa's dad is, I don't know if he's just a little too gregarious or what it is, but then we get Akeem's mom look at him with a judgmental look, and so he kind of tones himself down and just kind of waves as the married couple drive away, and that's kind of the end of the film.
It's a visual scolding.
Visual scolding. That's exactly how we end the movie.
That's how we end the movie. And I don't know why they would want to end on that note. It's a terrible note to end a movie.
Well,
pretty much any movie.
Here's the thing. The whole ending feels that way, right? I mean, tell me I'm wrong, but from the moment when we leave America and end up back in Zamunda, it feels so tacked on. Everything all of a sudden is just like, what just happened? This is how we're ending the movie? It was garbage. It was the ending made me just so mad when all of a sudden we lost all sense of storytelling and just said, let's just end the movie right now and let's have this big surprise with Lisa show up in Zamunda. Ha ha ha, surprise everybody. Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
It was terrible. But, after all, the title is Coming to America. They really didn't think through anything beyond that. Right. That's certainly what it felt like to me. It was as stitched on as it ever was. It was an excuse for another really long train on a wedding dress and a reveal that ended up being not terribly rewarding. I mean, it wasn't like it was supposed to be I mean, I guess it was technically supposed to be a surprise, but only to
but it was,
those on screen.
The only other note I have about the first shot, last shot, because it's a terrible pairing, is just the fact that the first shot, this very likely is the first time that a logo actually really becomes integrated into the actual first shot of the film. It's not just like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you've got the Paramount logo, kind of the drawing of the mountain that dissolves to an actual mountain. This is actually, and really they couldn't have done this before 86, I think is when Paramount introduced the CG logo with the Golden Child, interestingly, another Eddie Murphy movie. We get this chance for them now to actually play around with the logo in a fun way. And actually integrate it into the shot. And I think that's so fun to see. I had a great time seeing them actually fly past the mountain. And Zamunda's behind the Paramount Mountain. Who knew? I love that. I mean, it's, then you see Universal doing it a year later with the Burbs. And it really has become this thing now where logos are much more commonly integrated into films. And I think that's kind of a fun way to really kind of tie it all together.
I do too. Again, another great strength of the film, the CG logo that becomes part of the first shot. Well said, Andy. Casting was done by Jackie Birch, and we have, obviously, Eddie Murphy as Prince Akeem Joffer, Prince of Zamunda, Randy Watson, a soul singer with a fictional band called Sexual Chocolate, and Saul, the Jewish barbershop customer, as well as Clarence, the owner of said barbershop.
I will say, playing 4 characters, he creates 4 unique characters. I actually think Eddie Murphy has an incredible talent at this, and I enjoy watching him on screen, even if the film doesn't end up working. So I'll give him that.
Could not agree more. That is every time he stepped on as character, because the rest of the story was so boring. Whenever he stepped on, whether he was singing a Sexual Chocolate or he's doing the barbershop bit, I thought Saul, the Saul and Clarence bits in the barbershop were terrific. Just terrific. And you'll notice they never credit Murphy as Saul at the end. They give Eddie Murphy the credits on everything else, but they never credit him as the Jewish barbershop customer. I think it was just great.
As if no one would have believed it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So do you not like him as Prince Akeem? Because I actually really like him as Prince Akeem. I think he has this a little bit of this naivete, and he's just so positive about things. And even when he's like, getting milkshakes thrown in his face and he's mopping the floor and everything, I don't know, I just found him refreshing. And when he's waking up in the morning and standing on the porch on his apartment, he's just like, "Good morning, everybody," and they're like, "Hey, shut the hell up," and he's
yes, F you.
Yeah, F you too.
Yeah, there are some bits. So then what is it that falls apart, right? Because I guess, you point out all these little moments, and I do like the moments rather than the entire sequences of makeup art, but as a whole, the thread, I get tired of it so quickly. Like I feel like I understand the character early enough, and I get the walking on rose petals, and then I feel just embarrassed for James Earl Jones, and I have moved through the stages of grief about the movie, and I just become sort of fatigued by the character, because I feel like that same character maybe in a better movie would be a better experience, I guess.
I think it's the script. I mean, really, I think that's what it all falls down to, is that the script itself was just not as strong as it should have been. And I think that Eddie Murphy can pull off an interesting character, whether it's an old Jewish man or an African prince. I just think that because of script issues, it ends up making it more painful to watch all of the Prince Akeem bits, because, I mean, that is the bulk of the film. I will just say, only Eddie could wear an outfit with an ocelot on it. It's pretty impressive, you know. And you know, speaking of, we might as well just jump to James Earl Jones real quick. Only he could wear Mufasa on his outfit. He carries it off quite well. And the ocelot and lion both had cubic zirconium eyes, which I think is hilarious that they look that way.
It was tough for me watching James Earl Jones in here, and I don't know. I mean, I know I probably shouldn't hold him in as high esteem as I do. I mean, he is but a man, but yet seeing him parade around in this movie, I had a hard time with it.
Again, it's just the script. But yeah, watching him have lines like, you don't have sex with your bathing girls? I do.
Yeah.
I was like, James Earl Jones just said that. I feel a little dirty.
Yes. That's exactly right. I feel like my dad just said that to me. That's terrible.
The only other thing I was going to say about James Earl Jones, I mean, because, you know, I love him. I mean, he's James Earl Jones. You know how we were talking about before how John Landis has these moments in his movies where a character breaks the fourth wall and looks directly into the camera, like looking at the audience.
Yeah.
And I couldn't quite tell, but it does kind of look like James Earl Jones has that moment when he's talking about tying his shoelaces, where he's like, believe me, I tied my own shoes once. It is an overrated experience. It kind of looks like he looks into the camera when he says that. I couldn't quite tell. Definitely the dog later looks into the camera. Which is
I actually had a note
choice.
that Murphy did too earlier in the film, that he actually got a look at the camera too. But I feel like they weren't real obvious and weren't that long, so it was kind of tough to discern. The only other note I had about James Earl Jones was that it's rumored that the part was almost played by Sidney Poitier, and that actually is an experience I think that would have been worse. Like that would have been my grandfather talking to me about having sex with the bathing girl. That would have been horrible. Anyway, let's back up a little bit and talk about Arsenio Hall as Semi, Akeem's friend. He also played Reverend Brown, Morris the Barber, and, as you mentioned already, an ugly barfly.
You know, Arsenio Hall, I don't think he's a great actor. I mean, I can see why he became a talk show host. He certainly has that presence. But, I mean, there were times where he was acting and I was like, ugh, he really just seems like he's acting right now.
Yeah, I definitely got that too. And I know, at least at the time, as I understand it, he and Eddie Murphy were very close friends. I'm assuming that they are, close friends to this day. But that is, I also remember, like, when the Arsenio Hall came out, I think it was Eddie Murphy that was his first guest, right? And that was part of their, launch plan, was get somebody as big as Eddie in here. He went on and did Harlem Nights. He was in Harlem Nights as Crying Man. Harlem Nights, that was Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, and Red Fox. I have very little memory of that movie.
That was Eddie Murphy finally directing. He says that he was supposed to direct Coming to America, gave it to John Landis. This is what he ended up directing the very next year.
Since then, apart from the Arsenio Hall show, he's done some voiceover work, a bunch of animation, but not a whole lot. He kind of landed where he needed to land.
He's such an interesting time capsule of a person, though, right?
Yes,
that's the thing
totally.
I find interesting about Arsenio Hall is he so much represents the 90s with his talk show and that whole woo woo woo, that whole thing, that it was like such a weird chant that it even made it into a Robin Williams bit in Aladdin.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy who is like, kind of exhibits the life is long, have lots of careers. Like that's Arsenio Hall. And you really got to celebrate the guy for that. I actually think when he was Semi, I fatigued of him just like I fatigued of Akeem. But when he was in character and in makeup, he was also great. I really enjoyed watching all the barbershop scenes. I love him as the Reverend. I think the Reverend was hysterical. I think it was a great addition. So I had a good time watching him overall. I think he's a very talented guy. Again, as you say, with a not great script.
Yeah.
We do see John Amos pop up here as Cleo McDowell.
Ah, yes, the founder of McDowell's. I love the bit when he's caught reading the McDonald's operating manual. Possibly my favorite moment in the film.
That may be that's an interesting thing. We should talk about that, the McDowell's relationship, because they hang their head on that loud and proud. And it was legit.
Yeah, it was. They actually were worried that McDonald's would completely turn it down because, I mean, it just doesn't sound like something that they would want. But McDonald's actually liked it because they, as a company, are actually depicted in the script as really trying to pursue these guys and following up with their due diligence to close down this place. So they were happy with that, and they let them do it. They let them go with the golden arcs.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. And a lovely bit when they show an exterior shot of McDowell's restaurant with the golden arcs everywhere. And outside there's somebody taking pictures. And it turns out that is one of those examples of art imitating life, imitating art. The local, they had received, as you say, McDonald's was totally okay with this. They had clearance to do this, and they had permission, and they had everything they needed to go about. They just didn't tell the local franchise where they were shooting that they had clearance to do this. And so the local franchise actually had sent a photographer over to start documenting this incredible infraction to the set. And I thought that was pretty funny. You like it's like the little dog barking at you, the little dog trying to take down a car.
And it's great that they actually filmed it in a Wendy's.
That is actually maybe the greatest surprise. If McDonald's is so okay with it, come on.
Right, I know.
Put it in the, in the real
McDonald's,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But John Amos, I mean, he's funny. He works well as Lisa's father. It hits this point, especially when he finds out who Akeem is, that he's royalty and all that. And the scenes when everybody keeps coming over to his house toward the third act of the script. I mean, it just like the comedy with him just wasn't working for me. It was just kind of painful as he was just overly excited about everybody.
I agree. I think John Amos is a wonderful actor. I really do. And this was not a great part for him. Beyond the script. I mean, that his level of sort of enthusiasm was, just didn't match.
Yeah.
Madge Sinclair as Queen Aeolian, Akeem's mother, and Queen of Zamunda.
Yeah, she had worked with John Amos in Roots, and what I think is possibly my favorite thing about this whole thing is that she actually worked with James Earl Jones 5 years later, to be his queen again in The Lion King. And I don't think I ever knew that, but I just love that the team behind The Lion King actually reunited this couple as the king and queen of the jungle.
And their daughter, or not their daughter, I should say, the McDowell heiress, played by Shari Headley, playing the character Lisa McDowell, and Akeem's princess.
The studio was pushing for Vanessa Williams, and I have to say, I think I would have preferred Vanessa Williams. I mean, I think Shari Headley is fine in the part. It could just be that the part is just not written in a way where I really connected with her as a character. I just felt, and maybe it's just, she just feels like such an 80s character, but I didn't really care for her very much. And it could just be that last moment in the script when she just randomly pops up in the bride's dress just is irked me to no end. But I don't know. It's fitting that she went on to be in soap operas and stuff. And I mean, she did a lot of TV and other work, but I don't know. I didn't care for her that much.
In some, I don't know, some films you just like this, like you just need an actress that can pull off the doe-eyed, fall in love bit. And Shari Headley, I think, was almost just sort of unbelievable in that way. She just didn't give me that doe-eyed bit. I believed she was off to law school. I believe she, was off to become a much more sort of hardened, adult. And I just didn't believe that she would have fallen for this. I wanted to believe it. I want to believe like the princess falls in love with the prince and that it's a happy ending. Deep down, I really want those stories to work out. And it, it just felt sort of manufactured. The one of the strongest parts in the film, Paul Bates as Oha, a royal servant.
Yes, the singing assistant. He was great. I enjoyed all of the stuff involving waking Prince Akeem and how Oha kind of leads this whole thing to kind of guide everybody to make sure that Akeem is awakened appropriately and wiped appropriately and bathed appropriately and sang to and everything. He was very funny, and I guess he's the only one who popped up in the short-lived attempt at a TV show with this.
What else has he done? What else has Paul Bates done?
True Romance.
He's in Lethal Weapon, the TV series. He had a bit in one of the episodes in that film. True Romance, 8 Mile. I think it's. I sort of wish that he would use a different picture for his profile picture on IMDb. It's still his coming to America thing, and here we are. Kind of been a while.
Yep, his character photo. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Jeez. Anyway, and then there are a ton of fun bit parts that show up in this movie,
including Eriq La Salle, which I would have appreciated if it was more of a bit part.
What didn't you particularly like about Eriq La Salle?
I know that he's been in ER and other things. I don't know. I just didn't connect with him as Daryl. He just felt like a man who was given a part and he didn't know what to do with it. I really just struggled with his performance. I did appreciate that the script at least found a way to make it, good prince versus bad prince. Here we are as Daryl is kind of the prince of Soul Glow, the Jerry curl goop for these guys. I don't know. I just felt like he, for the most part, was just performing poorly. But then again, it's like you've got that moment where he's knocking on Lisa's sister's window, and she lets him in, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Lisa broke up with me." And so she kind of, Lisa's sister hooks up with him and is kind of like, what was that all about? It was such a poorly written scene. No context at all in relation to anything else that was happening here. And I think that it could just be that Eric was given these scenes and was just like, I don't know what to do with this. I guess I'll have to do with it the best I can.
I guess on this point we disagree. I like Eriq La Salle in this movie. I can't believe I'm saying it out loud. But I think this movie needs it needs the dumb boyfriend, and I think he actually does a fine job of playing the kind of vapid prince, or the vapid industrial royalty. And I thought he did a great job, and I could actually see why he ended up getting these bigger parts and the long running success he had on ER, because I think he's a very talented guy, and so I really liked him. And even though I agree with you, it's a terribly written part, but I think he does with what he is given.
Well, okay.
All right. Who else are you excited about?
Well, just like you said, the rest of the faces, people that we recognize. Frankie Faison, for me, he'll always be the guard in The Silence of the Lambs. Louis Anderson pops up as a McDowell's employee. Samuel L. Jackson makes an appearance as the robber, which was great. It was like, oh, hey, look, it's Samuel L. Jackson. And he's still, he was acting just like he did back then as he still is now. No, wow. I do like Samuel L. Jackson. Vondi Curtis Hall pops up as the basketball game vendor. Clint Smith, Eddie's friend, pops up as Sweets, another of the old barbers. And Cuba Gooding Jr. Pops up in his film debut as a barbershop customer. I guess he actually had one line and it got cut. So he's just sitting in the barber chair.
And he started shaving his head from then on. He's so mad and so broken. So you got to mention Don Amici and Ralph Bellamy reprise their roles as Mortimer and Randolph Duke. We mentioned this when we talked about Trading Places. This was their bit. At the end of Trading Places, they get thrown out on the streets, and here we find them on the streets as Akeem gives them a giant wad of cash, and they get to say, "We're back, Mortimer, we're back." That was good fun. I thought the bit was great. A little bit long. I don't think they needed to knock on the window at the end. Come on, move on.
Yeah. Right.
Be funny, move on. All right. Do we have anything to talk about with the production? What'd you come up with?
The only other thing I wanted to say was Rick Baker, when you're doing special makeup effects and you're making people, I don't think people understand enough how difficult and how complex that is, because as people, we can really tell when a makeup for a person is just not quite right. It's obviously difficult with aliens and things like that. But if you see a person who is made to look like a different person or made to look older or younger or whatever it is, we can pinpoint that very easily. And we call it out. It's just like, it just doesn't quite look right. I think Rick Baker really started honing these skills to just create some amazing stuff. And I mean, you look where he went after this with Eddie Murphy and just with other people creating these other personas. I mean, it's an incredible art to create out of makeup an entirely different person for somebody.
This is definitely a credit on his resume if it's not a overall terrific film.
Yeah.
We already mentioned Deborah Nadoolman on the costumes. We talked about her and the controversy of their the fight between Landis and Murphy. But in terms of the costumes, they are very flamboyant.
They're great. I actually love the costumes. John, of course, it's his wife, but he does say that the costumes are what really sell this whole country of Zamunda. And I really tend to agree. I mean, I think there's such a variety of costumes from the upper echelon to the lower echelon of people that you really can just get a sense that there is a very interesting tapestry of people in this country. So I really enjoy everything that she came up with for the costumes. Not to mention the stuff that she came up with for America. I mean, I love the little McDowell's costumes. It's almost like a little Scottish hat that they all are wearing. It's very funny. So I think that she did a marvelous job here.
In terms of, I already mentioned my trouble with the editing Malcolm Campbell and George Folsey Jr. Apparently Folsey is one of the producers of the film.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It just did not work terribly well for me. I felt like it was just a little bit loose throughout, with some glaring examples, but generally a little bit loose. The music, though, boy, if you want to embrace your 80s vibe, this is going to be how you do it.
Yes. Boy, you were having some troubles with the 80s music back in Beverly Hills Cop. This is where it really hits, and boy, does it hit hard. Nile Rodgers, who is a music producer, who's done a lot of stuff with a lot of big performers, was brought on to actually score the film. The score is like, it is what it is. It's not anything that memorable, other than, he's got a nice difference between Zamunda and America. But for the most part, I think it's just the performers he brought in to do all the songs. Wow, it's just so dated. I mean, you've got the System performing the title track, Coming to America, the Cover Girls, Chico DeBarge, Michael Rogers, Mel and Kim, Levert, JJ Fad, Nona Hendricks. Just artists that you're like, yeah, there's probably reason that nobody hears about those people anymore, because it was just, it was so dated, so dated.
Can't believe you didn't actually get to Sister Sledge in your list.
Well, Sister Sledge, they have some good songs. That's why.
The truth comes out. Oh, that's great. I'm glad I recorded that.
That's
Sister
right.
Sledge, so that's going to be my new ringtone. This is not, I never actually owned this soundtrack.
No, this was not like Beverly Hills Cop.
No. What about award season?
The two people that we really liked for this that got 2 Oscar nominations. Deborah Nadoolman was nominated for Best Costume Design. She lost to James Atchison for Dangerous Liaisons.
Deservedly on both points, right? She deserved the nomination and he deserved to win.
Absolutely. And Best Makeup for Rick Baker. But that lost to Vay Neal, Steve Laporte, and Robert Short for Beetlejuice. So very fanciful makeup. In this particular case, I mean, I love the makeup in Beetlejuice. A very creative character, very unique vision and everything. But man, creating these totally different people, I don't know. I'm a little torn here. I kind of am leaning toward Rick Baker.
Yeah, me too. You mentioned a TV pilot earlier. Did it air?
It never got picked up. This is the one that I said, Paul Bates. He was the only one who actually returned for it. It did not get sold, but CBS did this summer playhouse. This was the summer after the movie was released, and they put it in their summer playhouse. It sounds like they just played a bunch of unsold pilots, and so that was the only time that people were able to see it. And that was all. Nothing else.
No other big remakes.
Well, there was a Tamil version called My Dear Marthandan that was made. I don't know anything about that one other than the fact that it was made.
Deep inquiry. That's what we call that segment.
Looks like 1990. There you go.
All right. And of course, do we see You Next Wednesday, Andy? Did you spot it?
It does pop up in here.
This is what we talked about. This is the thing, Landis's thing. He puts See You Next Wednesday. See our last Landis conversation for details. Where do we see it?
It is in the subway. We get it when Lisa jumps out of the subway and Akeem stays on and watches her run away. We see it up on the wall there. This big, fantastic sci-fi movie. See You Next Wednesday. Good stuff. Awesome. I wonder if John Landis has just a whole wall of the various See You Next Wednesday posters.
I know, right? I would like that collection. Okay, so now this was released in 1988, and it was kind of at the height of Murphydom. It has to have performed well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Landis's comedy cost $39 million to make, or about $79 million in today's dollars, which is a higher budget than the previous 2 films we've discussed, which is surely the sign of Murphy's box office successes, as you pointed out. It did open June 29th, 1988, with no other new releases that weekend. Apparently, everyone was afraid of Eddie Murphy's box office strength and let him have the early 4th of July weekend. The movie opened in the number 1 slot, bumping Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Big, each down a peg. It held the number 1 slot for 3 weekends and went on to make an incredible $128 million domestically and $160.6 million overseas, or $586 million total in today's dollars. This puts Coming to America at the 3rd highest grossing film in 1988 behind Rain Man and Roger Rabbit, and gives it an adjusted profit per finished minute of almost $4.4 million. Surely even Prince Akeem would find this a princely sum. But that being said, according to Paramount, as far as it related to the Buchwald case, they made nothing.
Huzzah!
That's right.
Jeez. All right, Andy. Well, I feel like this is going to be a real tight heat at the bottom of the list here. Let's go ahead and rank it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You can just swipe up on your podcast device, and you'll see it in the show notes. You can jump to the show notes and click on the Flickchart link, and that'll take you straight to this show, and you can add it to your list. Let's rank it and see how long it takes to get to the bottom of the list, to rank against the women.
Oh, let's find out. First up, Coming to America, or hey, this might
whatever
be
it is you're going to say.
Right, but this might be the new Oh Brother block, Joe versus the Volcano, which is so exciting to see.
Well, I'm going to say Joe versus Volcano, of course, but I also would like to add, as an addendum, talk about a movie that, for me, gets all the stuff that Coming to America gets wrong right.
Here. Definitely. All right, next up, Coming to America, or The Sandlot.
The Sandlot.
Totally The Sandlot. Coming to America, or Bull Durham. Some Kevin Costner action. Bull
I'm gonna
Durham
say
for me.
Bull Durham, yeah, Bull Durham.
Coming to America, this will be fun. Or Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yes, indeed. Terrible Indiana Jones.
I would say
film.
that's actually not fun because we have to admit
No.
something horrible, but
Right.
it's the truth. Yeah.
Well, here we go. Coming to America or Apt Pupil. Boy, that was a tough one.
this is the tough one. I think I may lean toward Apt Pupil because of because of the talent in the film. But it's close.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning toward Coming to America only because of the makeup and those fun characters.
Yeah, okay. All right. You've swayed me.
I don't. Okay. Oh, Coming to America or Strange Days. I have so many problems with Strange Days, but I'm still going to pick it.
Yeah, me too. Because of the trailer.
Exactly.
It has such a good trailer.
Coming to America or Pritzi's Honor. I'm going to say Pritzi's Honor.
Yeah, Pritzi's Honor.
Coming to America or everybody's favorite Blindness.
Okay, I can't, Andy. I can't do it. The line must be drawn here and no further. I am picking Coming to America.
Me too, actually. And I'm the one who liked Blindness.
I know.
Okay, well, there we are. 274 out of 284.
Wow, that's actually higher than I expected it to
I know, right?
Oh, dear.
It's above
Well-
Blindness, The Edge, Apt Pupil, The Last Boy Scout, The Omega Man, Children of the Corn, Scoop, Rush, Under the Cherry Moon, and The Women.
Those are 9 bad movies and a gross violation of Flickchart. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
What's your letterbox ranking for the good Coming to America?
It had a few things that I enjoyed, but not enough to give it much of a rating. So I'm at 1.5 with this one.
I was at 1.5 too, Andy, for
Look
the
at that.
barbershop bits.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Like mine.
It's
Like
kind of a
mine's.
weighted score, even though it's on a curve. I grade it on a curve. So that closes out our Eddie Murphy in the '80s series, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that series. I enjoyed getting a little breath of the '80s, and now I'm ready to let it go in the wind.
Yeah, it's interesting as we kind of close out this Eddie Murphy series, just kind of looking at what he was doing in the 80s. I mean, I enjoy him as a performer. I think that he is very vibrant and fun to watch on screen. And I liked that we at least, even if we didn't like Coming to America, we at least got to get some of that makeup character stuff that he does so well. So I ended up having a pretty good time with this series. And it just made me sad again to kind of revisit his whole filmography and just kind of run down the list of the 54 credits that he has on there and just realize that most of the stuff on there is just, stuff that just looks like garbage that I would never, ever want to watch. Other than like the Shrek films and Bowfinger, I mean, he's got a few in there. Mulan, I really enjoy. But for the most part, it's like, the small pocket of some of the films in the 80s. I mean, that's really when it was kind of at his peak. And it makes me wonder if I would have enjoyed ending this series with The Golden Child more, because I certainly have memories of that film. I don't know if they're good memories. I don't know if it would fall into the same camp as Coming to America, though,
I have exactly the same memory of Golden Child that I had of Coming to America, and I almost don't want to put that to the test.
Right?
Let me just live with the memory of it. I'm with you, but I'll tell you what I came away with from the series thinking more than anything else is I am ready for the next coming of Eddie Murphy. I really want to see what his next thing is. I still haven't seen Mr. Church, and I feel like I should. I know it has not gotten great reviews, but I want to see it for his performance as a man of this age, and see what Eddie Murphy is capable of not in these kinds of comedies. So I'm looking forward to it. I have renewed interest in that film in particular.
It's interesting. He is going to be playing, it looks like Richard Pryor's father in a biopic directed by Lee Daniels called Richard Pryor. Is it Something I Said?
Right. That's true. And you know what else I should say? This is maybe the third coming of Eddie Murphy, because the second coming of Eddie Murphy was when I saw Dreamgirls, in which he was stellar. I really enjoyed him in that movie. So.
Excellent.
Where do we go from here?
Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to have a genre series. We're going to talk about a few transgender films, which should be kind of a fun series to discuss. We're kicking it off with The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Mostly drag queens, but we do have a transgender character in there. Then we're going to jump over to Transamerica and end with The Danish Girl. So, it should be a fun little series with some good movies to talk about.
What of those have you seen? Have you seen all of those?
I have not seen The Danish Girl. That's the only one that I missed.
I've seen Priscilla and The Danish Girl. I've not seen Transamerica.
Oh, okay.
This is one of those genres that I'm really interested in talking about, because I am so ill-equipped to talk about it. So this should be delightful researching this and trying to kind of wrap my head around what these movies accomplish that I'm sure I'm not actually seeing.
Right.
So I'm really curious about these. So
have you seen any of the TV show Transparent?
I have not. This is the Amazon show, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I haven't either, but I hear nothing but good things, and it's one that I've been very curious about. But finding I so rarely get to just pick up and start a new TV show, but it is one that I've had on my list of curiosity.
When I pick up a new TV show, it's usually for empty calories. You know what I mean? Like, I usually pick up the ones that really I can jump in, jump out of. So it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, Curse of riches, baby.
Indeed.
I gotta go to bed.
All right, man. Well, I'm feeling a wee bit peckish. I think I'm gonna head on down to the Golden Arcs.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
I'm just gonna say this. I'm picking a 1 star because that's kind of what we do in this bit, and I'm mostly, I want to say, 1 star people. This is probably not the best place to say that your disc was bad, right? Go to customer service and do it. Can we move on beyond that? 1 star people, move on, because you're ruining it for the rest of us. And then I want to say, for you people who watch an Eddie Murphy movie, well, here you go. Disgusted. This reviewer says, disgusted, 1 star, 2012. Thought this would be a good comedy. Unfortunately, it was not. As seen on television, a lot of suggestiveness and nudity. How unfortunate for these actors to sink that low just for a few dollars. Didn't even watch the whole movie. After about 20 minutes, my husband and I had had enough. Don't waste your money on this. Now, I'm just going to say, it's an Eddie Murphy movie in the 80s. It's don't be afraid of boobs. Don't fear the boobs. It's not a good movie. You shouldn't see it. It's not a good movie. But this is not why. Suggestiveness and nudity and the F words. Don't fear the word. They're just words. I could go
this
on.
Is what is in the movie? This is Eddie Murphy in the 80s. Well, I've got a 5 star, Pete.
Oh, yeah, you're bucking the bit.
Well, I try to go opposite me. That's what I try to do. So.
Yeah.
A customer, 5 star, says don't watch the trailers first. Rule number 1 about this movie is don't watch the trailers first. They give away all the funny parts. This is an extremely funny movie. Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall at their best. What a great life this prince has. Beautiful, naked black girls that bathe you. And a luxurious life. Anyway, besides the black naked girls, this movie is extremely funny. Especially how the prince doesn't know much about the American language. But if you watch the trailer first on DVD, then it will make the movie not funny anymore. This movie is even better than Eddie Murphy's newer videos. Well, exception of the Dr. Dolittle movies. This is a great movie, and I personally took this movie to mind and thought, hey, this is a good way to check if a girl is a gold digger before you ask them out.
Oh my God.
Pretending to be poor.
Serious.
Pretending to be poor instead of pretending to be rich. An excellent idea. This movie made me laugh throughout the whole movie, and I especially liked the part where they talked about boxers. That was funny.
That wasn't serious. That was a spoof, right? That was a spoof.
I don't know, but this is one of the funniest reviews that I've seen in a long time. And somebody who appreciates the boobs.
I mean, we should calculate. I mean, don't watch the trailer first. They give away all the funny bits in the movie. Let's just say that means you can get all the funny bits in 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
But you can't get the part where they talk about the boxers.
Oh, God. Thanks, Amazon. It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.